I wanted to give an update on some of the art book reviews that I've made. I think before I was really trying to be objective, get at the heart of, is this a good book? Is this a quality book or is it a bad one? And the more I think about that, that's kind of a ridiculous notion that a piece of art could be judged objectively. It can only really be seen subjectively. I'm me. I bring my own stuff to whatever it is I'm experiencing art-wise. And I think it's not really possible to just have some imaginary audience in mind and try to guess what they're going to think is important. So, in other words, I'm going to try to tell you more about what I actually think about these books rather than try to get at the correct answer. Let me try to explain what I mean with the Hyrule Historia here. I think I said something like, well, I found the chronology stuff to be kind of tedious. It's interesting how they tied it all together, but I mean, if you're a really big Zelda fan, perhaps you'll love nerding out on all this stuff. I think I gave it an average review, like 3 out of 5. Well, I mean, what I actually think is, good grief, is this book boring? This is one of the most boring books I've ever read in my entire life. And I think the chronology stuff kind of ruins the stories of the Zelda games. It kind of creates its own interpretation of what all the games mean, and I'm just, what are you doing? And the captions are so boring. I mean, I do not think very highly of this book at all, other than the way it looks right here. So I'd probably give it more like a 2 out of, maybe even a 1 out of 5. We'll go with 2 out of 5. So I'm going to go over all the other books in order and give you some of my updated thoughts. I'm also going to have a bunch of new books that I go over. All right, so let's start with Uncharted, the Art of the Uncharted Trilogy. I think I gave it about 4 out of 5 before. I said it was a good book. I would probably lean more towards average now. It does have a lot of good artwork. A lot of it's with the environments. And it's pretty interesting. It's got some okay commentary, but really, apart from the cover and the red gilded edges, it doesn't really do anything that exceptional, so I'd probably say average. 3 out of 5. I just went over this book, the most boring book in the whole world. Well, maybe with one exception. The Art of Castlevania Lords of Shadow, I think is pretty good. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 before, said it's got some decent commentary, but the organization's all over the place, doesn't include a lot of stuff. All that's still true. This is one of those books, though, that I just I think about sometimes. I think some of the artwork is really striking and interesting, and I think it's pretty good. Maybe 4 out of 5, something like that. All right, The Art of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Again, if you're really into tropical environments, islands, things like that, can't go wrong with this. The caption issue that I talk about in the full video, it is so annoying. The experience of reading through the book from start to finish is, what am I looking at? Where's the caption for it? It's on another page? What are they thinking? What? It's so annoying. It really, really brings it down for me. I would go 2 out of 5 at the highest for sure. Ooh, Dragon's Dogma, Official Design Works. Again, soft cover is really annoying. If this had like a good sturdy hardcover like that Uncharted book I just showed you, I would probably go 5 out of 5 for sure. And I'm still going to go 5 out of 5. I think the commentary is without match. It's probably the best commentary of any book I have to date. I think the illustrations are really interesting. All the stuff's labeled, and there's lots of interesting information given. Man, other than the soft cover, no complaints whatsoever. If you make video game art books, make them like this. All right, ooh, man. Dark Souls Design Works. Look at that cover. It's very reflective, looks pretty cheap in my opinion. It's maybe even worse than I said before. I think I said 2 out of 5 before. I would probably go 1 out of 5. It is so disappointing. This is one of the best games ever made, for me, in my opinion, of course. This book is ridiculously inadequate and it's just not good enough. Let's just have one drawing of one monster. Let's not say anything about it. But it's so ridiculous. And why is everything so tiny? Come on. Why? I'm not buying an art book to look at things the size of my wallet. It's ridiculous. All right. Killzone Visual Design. Whoa. Love this book. Super good. 5 out of 5 easily. The commentary, oh man, it's a little bit different than in something like Dragon's Dogma, but it is so good. It's so descriptive. It explains so much about the game design, the art design, why they go in the directions they do, why they didn't go in certain directions with how they're designing things. Extremely interesting to me. The artwork is really good. The book itself feels really nice. The pages feel really nice. It has really high printing quality. I don't know how they did it compared to so many other books. This book's amazing. Get it for sure if you have any interest in that series. The Art of the Mass Effect Universe. Kind of what I said before. What is in there is good. The commentary is good. It's interesting enough. There's just way too little. That is a pretty thin book for 3 games, a trilogy. And those aren't just any 3 games. I mean, this is like the Lord of the Rings of space games. Even more detailed than Star Wars, probably, how they fleshed everything out. And we get this? Come on. So there's just not enough. Probably still 3 out of 5. Okay, so an illustrated history of 151 video games. I think I said 4 out of 5 before, saying something like, oh, as a history book, it's really good, but as a art book, not so much. It's got this original artwork that is just butt ugly, and I don't know what they're thinking with it. It's got mostly screenshots. I think this is a really interesting way of looking at video game history by the games. That's how we all actually experience this, is playing video games. And I think the writing's enjoyable. It's to the point. I would probably go 5 out of 5 for this book. Really good if you have any interest in looking about video game history. All right. Oof. Art and Design, Final Fantasy 15. This book is actually pretty awkward to put on a bookshelf. If you've got some other wide set books, then you can kind of stack them rather than, place them on end. But yeah, I would still say what I said before. It has some extremely major shortcomings as far as what's included in the book, and half the book's about the movie, which no one's seen. Who cares about the movie? And I don't know if there's an anime as well or something. We played the game. We're interested in the game. Put stuff about the game in this book and not everything else. But man, it's hard. This is probably the best looking book. It has the most style and the best aesthetics of probably any book I've ever seen. Video game art book or not. Did I say 4 out of 5? That's probably what I think. Wow, look at how small that one is. What's the point of this book? It's ridiculously bad. I would easily give it 1 out of 5. There's nothing in there. It's all disorganized. Ridiculous. The Art of Fallout 4. That was the No Man's Sky book, by the way. I don't even know if I got around to saying the name of the book. The Art of Fallout 4. I would go 4 out of 5. It's really good. It's nice and thick. Amazingly, it probably could have even used more, mostly in the form of commentary. It's got some stuff at the start of each chapter. Oh, here's what we were thinking when we were designing the cars, which is good. But it would have been nice to have a lot more image-specific content. Most pages are more or less devoid of commentary, but the printing in this book is really good. The images seem really clean, and it's just really nice to look through. It's totally perfect for a coffee table book if you're grown up to have a coffee table. I don't. The Art of Horizon Zero Dawn. I think I said average before. Maybe I'd still go with that, but it seriously ticks me off so much that they basically have no machines in this book. I don't understand why developers do this. I mean, if you're putting together, if you're putting together an art book about a sci-fi video game or a fantasy video game, we want to see the monsters and the things we're fighting against and things like that. Think about a game like Doom. What is like the moment-to-moment experience of that game? Fighting demons. There's a huge variety of demons. They all do different things. That's what your experience is playing the game. Why would you make an art book without including that? That's bananas. And that's the main issue that this book has. What's in there is quite lovely. The commentary is by not a developer, and it's mostly really trite and uninteresting. There's some good stuff in there, though. huge disappointment on the focus of what they decided to put in this book. Total shame. Hopefully, they can get Cook and Becker, the people that did the Killzone book, to make the book for the sequel to this game. That would be a dream come true. Probably won't happen. Dawn, The Art of Final Fantasy. I think I gave this a 3 out of 5 before. I think I said it was average. I would probably go 2 out of 5. Conceivably even, 1 out of 5 is a bit too low. I really like the artwork. It's quite unique, the artwork. It's like, whoa, this guy's definitely got a different style than most other artists. But there's no literally no commentary whatsoever. They can't even label the images. They just put a number and there's an index at the back. It's ridiculous. Come on, why are we doing this? So yeah, probably 2 out of 5. Ooh, The Order 1886. I think it's called Blackwater Archives. The Art of the Order 1886, something like that. All around, probably the best book. It's wide set. It's got this leather, faux leather. I can't tell the difference. Cover, really wide images, full page images, double page images, extremely interesting commentary. If you're making an art book, check out that Dragon's Dogma book. Man, this one probably even more. I cannot think of anything I would change about this book. It's basically perfect. Easily 5 out of 5. The gold standard that you should all be trying to get to, video game book publishers. Ooh, the Zelda Encyclopedia. Amazing sleeve. Love the way this book looks. Pretty similar thoughts. I'd go 4 out of 5. The writing is insane, and it's at least as boring and ridiculous as the Hyrule Historia, at least as game ruining and nostalgia ruining as the Hyrule Historia, the writing. But as an encyclopedia, really good. And so I think if I'm thinking of looking through this with kids or something, let's look at the Zelda Encyclopedia. It does exactly that. It's got everything. So yeah, pretty good. I'd probably still go 4 out of 5. Oh man, look at that frog. That says it all right there. Do you want to look at an entire book where that is probably the most interesting image in it? I don't feel like talking about this book anymore. 1 out of 5. Easily the worst art book I own. I genuinely don't know why I've kept it. Maybe just so I can make more videos like this one where I continue to rag on it. Alright, so that's kind of the update of the books I've already done, and now I've got several new ones. I'm probably going to change how I do some of the reviews and value the backstage info a little bit more, but I just want to give you some quick thoughts about a bunch of new books. I got maybe 20 of them here. Alright. The Art of Metal Gear Solid, numbers 1 through 4. Metal Gear Solid is probably my favorite series. This book, there's 2 books in fact, totally do it justice. This is amazing. Easily 5 out of 5 stars. Got these 2 huge books, if I can even manage to pull them out. Alright, so you've got one that's all black and white, right? And it just has everything. This artist, Hideo Kojima once said of this artist, Yoji Shinkawa, that he was born to make video game art. And I totally understand now what he's talking about. The drawings are so detailed. He'll have like a drawing of Snake. No one's conceptualized what he looks like before. He draws them perfectly. He's got, okay, here's where his belt is. Here's where his holster is. Here's where the rivets are on the gun holster. And everything. It's so detailed. So I think that even when the person's designing the game, I don't know how it all works. The people are designing the actual game. It's all spelled out for them perfectly. He does all of that with also this just incredible style. He'll draw like 6 lines, and I'll think, that's the most realistic looking hair I've ever seen. How did he do that? And this whole book is exactly like that. This other book is quite similar. It's all in color. Well, mostly in color. Just got much larger images. A little bit farther along in the production process. I am thrilled with these books. Amazing. Metal Gear Solid 5 sort of is not the greatest end to the series to me, and I kind of like that it's not in here. It's got Peace Walker as well, by the way, if you're a huge fan of that game like I am. This series of books has one major flaw, and it's pretty major, honestly, which is we've gone for authenticity. We've included the original Japanese text. That's great. I don't speak Japanese. And you know that this book is in English because you put English text in here. So what they've done is they've labeled different, whenever there's Japanese text, they add in a tiny caption right there at the bottom. You need a magnifying glass to see this. So you're doing a lot of what you got to do in that Final Fantasy book. Okay. That is really tedious and annoying. If it's the English version of the book, please just translate it into English. That would be really nice. All right, so yeah, like I said, I fully anticipate giving that book 5 out of 5 stars. Amazing in every way. Love it. Another game that I love a lot, Persona 4. Really great. It's got some really interesting commentary. It's got mostly finalized images, but the designers will talk about, okay, here's why we gave him this coat, and here's what we're thinking behind that. Or here's why we emphasize this part of this persona, kind of giving this psychological justification and things. I found that really interesting, really great. Again, major issue is, if you think of the game, the monsters in the games are called shadows. I mean, how many are there? Hundreds? At least over 100. There's something like 3 pages of them in this book. Why? What? Come on. What's that? Why this huge omission? I don't understand what these people are thinking. There was some kind of remark I'm remembering that was like, oh, it's kind of in this other book. What? Come on, put it all in here. Also, it's soft cover. That kind of drives me bananas. But, I don't know, 4 out of 5, something like that. Okay, the Art of the Deus Ex Universe. I really like these games. The 2 most recent one, Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. I think the aesthetics are really good. They've got commentary from the director of the first game. Super, super good. Very, very insightful. Love it to pieces. Some of the commentary from the guy who directed the second game is a different person. Fine. Average. Not as good as before. And there's also some stuff from Paul Davies, the same guy that does the Assassin's Creed 4 art book. His tone is like he writes as if the person reading the book has never played a video game before. That's a ridiculous tone to take. It's like my grandma's gonna go pick up the Art of Deus Ex Universe. Come on. People are buying this because they've played the game. You can talk to us as if we've played the game. Probably 4 out of 5. If all of the commentary was as good as the director of the first games, wow, that would be 5 out of 5 easily. I don't know the name of this book. It's the Skyrim Art Book. It came in like a collector's edition or something. I didn't buy the collector's edition. I tracked this down. It's got kind of this faux leather cover. It feels really cool, actually. Unfortunately, the contents are not that great. It's extremely wanting. There's not really that much insightful to say, and that's a huge shame. If you think of how huge Skyrim is as a game, again, it was like Lord of the Rings. Well, not quite Lord of the Rings in terms of how in-depth it is, but I mean, that's not good enough. So probably a 2 out of 5, maybe even a 1 out of 5. Mega Man. Probably something like 2 out of 5. It's got pretty good commentary. Some of the commentary is particularly good. A lot of it is not very good. And again, maybe if you're a huge fan of the games or you've read the comics for 30 years, you'll understand this in a way that I don't. I've played all the NES Mega Man games and a couple of the Super Nintendo ones and things like that. So much of this was just lost on me. They're just talking endlessly about stuff. I'm like, wow, what are you guys even talking about? They'll say they'll have some image like this, and they'll be like, okay, I took a week deciding what Mega Man should look like, and I spent another week composing the pose and how I want it to be, and then another 2 weeks to actually draw it. And I'm not an artist, but how on earth is it taking that long? That is kind of bananas to me. The other main thing with this book is a humongous percentage of the artwork in here is things, well, that's not a great example, but it's things like this, where there's just that style of artwork where there's a billion characters. There's a billion things going on, which is kind of fun to see sometimes. Where you're like, ooh, there's all these Mega Man bosses that I remember fighting, and that's so fun. But when like a third of this book is just these giant conglomerations with tons and tons of the exact same things going on, I mean, you get pretty jaded. And I don't know. There's tons of them. Everything is pretty much in that style. I guess that's the style. It's not a particularly interesting to me. I'd probably go, did I already grade this? 3 out of 5, 2 out of 5, something like that. The Art of The Last of Us, pretty similar to the Art of the Uncharted Trilogy, as you may guess. Same developer, same publisher, Dark Horse. Pretty similar thoughts. Good artwork. Okay commentary. Doesn't really do anything particularly amazing. One issue with this book is there are a huge amount of pages devoted to character clothing. I guess, a lot of the enemies in the game are humans, so you got to design their jackets and their pants and all this, but I mean, I don't care about seeing that. I think the Fallout 4 art book did it perfectly. They had this one page with this huge spread of like 200 or something different concepts for the Institute uniform. And it does give you the sense of, wow, they really paid a lot of attention to the clothing in this game and how they want it to look. But I don't want to see that for like literally every shirt in the game. I mean, that just gets bananas. And they're not like exotic shirts. It's like a normal t-shirt or a normal coat or something. That's pretty boring, honestly. Ooh, this one. The Art of God of War. This is some sort of special edition. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sure you can find it somewhere online. It comes with this, a couple of art prints, which it's cool. I don't know what I'm ever going to do with this. It's going to stay in this box probably forever. I can't imagine realistically hanging this up on my wall. I guess if you really wanted to, you could. But the book itself, I really love the way it looks and feels. It's got red gilded pages. It's got kind of this... It's kind of like that Uncharted Trilogy book where it's not real leather, but it really looks like it. It's got this cool look. Really, really good commentary. Unusually interesting images. They have... Everything's in the order that the game was designed in. They kind of go through that process of, okay, first we're thinking this, then we did this, then we changed our minds about that. And they talk about how they really wanted to capture this Nordic feel. They weren't totally sure how to do that. So they're like, okay, well, we hired this guy. He's a really good artist. We're expecting such and such, and he sends us this artwork back, and holy cow, it completely blew us away. And I look at this artwork, and I'm like, whoa, I feel the same way. So I think not only is the art interesting, it would take me forever to find that exact image. I'll probably just make a fuller review of the book. But not only is the artwork itself interesting, but they do a good job of setting up why you would be blown away by this image. They're like, okay, here's how we're thinking of this, and then they show you this description of, here's a fantasy Nordic world where these people are, skinning a mammoth or something. And it just does a really good job of capturing all of that. It commits yet another cardinal sin of having a game with extremely interesting monsters and characters, and that's a huge part of the game is fighting them. Let's barely include any of them. What are you thinking? Stop doing this, video game art book publishers. It's ridiculous. All right, The World of The Witcher. I'm a pretty big fan of The Witcher 3. Like it a lot. This art book's kind of unique. It doesn't have really all that much art, but it has this... I think if you're looking for artwork, this is not a very good book, frankly. But if you're just a fan of The Witcher, I think this is actually a really, really good book. It has this really unique approach. It has, I can't remember, 5 or 6 chapters there, and it has them each written with a different voice. One of them about magic is written by Yennefer. One of them written about Geralt's exploits is written by Dandelion. One of them written about witchers is written by Geralt. So it has this really interesting tone, and it really gets into the world of The Witcher. I thought it was pretty cool, actually. For artwork, not very good at all, like 2 out of 5. As a fan of The Witcher, probably 4 out of 5, something more like that. So this is called The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Art Book. Came with some collector's edition. I have been trying to track down a copy of this book for like 4 years. at a reasonable price, and that was pretty tough. It's not bad. It has a lot more artwork than that other art book I just showed you, and it's got some commentary, but it's not really all that exceptional. Probably, average 3 out of 5. Okay, so Monster Hunter illustrations. I think there's actually several of these printed in Japanese, but there's only a couple in English so far. Maybe there's 3 now. I think it's really good, actually. I might even go as high as 5 out of 5 stars. If not, it's really close to that. It has tons of stuff about monsters. Wow, someone's actually realized why people like their games. It has lots of interesting commentary about them, lots of the details about the specific designs and specific parts of monsters, just like in the Dragon's Dogma book. Really good. It does this insane thing where it refuses to label the images, and it just has this index in the middle of the book. It's a ridiculous format. I don't know why they're doing that. Please stop doing that. It seems to be kind of a book for Japanese audiences. We've got Monster Hunter Illustrations 2, a book I liked slightly less than the other one. I can't quite put my finger on it. I think the indexing issue just really started to bug me. It does this thing where they're saying, well, we preserved it for I can't remember what they're talking about, but it's organized in a ridiculous way. It's got the finalized images of everything, and then kind of midway through production, and then really early sketches. I kind of just felt like I was reading the same book 3 times, with the images getting progressively worse. It does this thing where, originally in Japanese, the image, like the page numbers, would be backwards because their books are designed to open at the other end. And they keep that same design here, so I think originally it's okay, we start with this rough stuff, then it gets better and better. That's still kind of a weird design to me, a way to organize your book, but it's a lot better. What I would prefer is have, okay, here's this monster in beginning sketches, medium, and finalized version, all right next to each other. Why? I don't want to read the same book 3 times within the same book. But overall, quite good. If you're a fan of those games, kind of can't go wrong. The Art of Sonic the Hedgehog, or I think it's just called Sonic the Hedgehog, made by the same folks that made Art and Design Final Fantasy 15 and the Killzone Visual Design Art Book. So the aesthetics are top of the line. They must spend months retouching images. It is just such high quality. This book focuses a lot on the early Sonic games, which I personally like quite a bit. It adds a lot of insight into the designs, including how the design of Sonic began to go so wrong, maybe about 15 years ago. I thought it was a really good book. It's got a lot of interesting stuff in it. It's got I like this as a product. I like the size and shape of it. It's kind of annoying to put on the shelf. Ooh, The Art of Point-and-Click Adventure Games. Now this has, it's hard to... I think the images in this book are probably even better than the original. Some of these games are really, really old. They definitely didn't look even this good on those old monitors. I mean, this game is like from the early 80s or even earlier than that. The main draw of this book is it has a screenshot, a really high-res, touched-up screenshot of every game it's talking about, but the main highlight is it's got interviews with all these people, and not just like little brief interviews, little excerpts. It's like someone sat down with Gary Winnick and Ron Gilbert for like over an hour for sure, and talked with them and recorded it, and they talk about all sorts of things about how they designed Monkey Island, all these great classic games. It's really reminded me how much I liked these kinds of games growing up. I really like this book. 5 out of 5 easily. One of my favorites. Same folks put together this book, the Unofficial NES/Famicom, a visual compendium. So it's got like a page or a 2-page spread. It's got a screenshot, very well touched up. Again, probably better than your old CRT TV screen showed you. It's got kind of an excerpt from someone to do with the game. Maybe it was a game reviewer, maybe it was a person that made the game. They're all pretty on point, but it's not quite as special as that last book because It's not really original to that book, but still pretty good. I'd give it a 4 out of 5, probably. Same thing, but with Super Nintendo. Maybe it's just because I have a little bit less of a connection with Super Nintendo compared to the NES. I didn't like this one quite as much. I also thought some of the excerpts from the creators and things like that weren't nearly as interesting. Maybe more like a 3 out of 5, but man, if you're a fan of Super Nintendo, this is probably really right up your alley. Speaking of personal preference, Thimbleweed Park Art Book. This is a fairly obscure game. Folks that made all those old point-and-click adventure games made a new one just a few years ago. A game which I really liked. It has really reminded me of my childhood, and I thought it was really funny. The art book, though, does not really show much development art. It mostly just showing, okay, here's this character, here's all their animated poses, here's some screen from the game. Well, that one's really dark, it's not going to show very well. That one's a teeny bit better. So it's just showing you exactly what you played, which is all right. I'm not particularly thrilled with that. I wish they would have put in more. They've got this wide set art book, but I mean, like, okay, let's cram 2 wide set screens in one page. Why didn't they just expand this image and put it over both pages? I think this book could have been quite a lot longer just by making the images better rather than cramming multiple like widescreen images onto one widescreen page. It's kind of a weird design choice for throwing this book together. So, an objective review is probably sort of low, maybe like a 2 out of 5, but frankly, I love this game and I really liked this book. It's probably more like a 4 out of 5 for me. The Art of Ratchet and Clank. What's there been, like, almost 10 Ratchet and Clank games at this point? That is not a whole lot to be given us. Think of how thick those Metal Gear Solid books were for half the amount of games in that series. That's the main issue with this book is, good grief, it's not covering many things. It covers, okay, here's how we came up with the original idea of the game series. Here's how we came up with Ratchet and the iterations we had. Those are interesting. But it's just kind of like, well, here's a planet from this game. Here's a few weapons from that game. Here's, some character from this game. But it's not in any way comprehensive. It's just like in my opinion, basically the bare minimum of stuff to include in a book and be able to call it, here's everything from the Ratchet and Clank series. It's extremely limited in what it has. And so if you've got a favorite level or a favorite weapon or something from the games, the odds are it's probably not in this book, and that's kind of a shame. So maybe 2 out of 5, something like that. Next we've got The Art of Days Gone. Okay, so this book does something that I absolutely love, that a lot of other books don't do. So if I think of that God of War art book, and I'm complaining about why aren't they putting more monsters in this thing, I think what they're doing is they often release those books at the same time as the games themselves. And so they've only revealed so much about the game in trailers or press releases or whatever. And I think they often don't want to go further than that with the art book. So they're like, we're only going to show a Draugr and a troll in this God of War art book, because we don't want to spoil anything. This is all that's been shown so far. I think that's an absolutely insane approach to take if that is what's informing it, which I genuinely think is, because it's just a very common theme in those books where their detail on the monsters and stuff is lacking. This book starts out, the director of the game just saying, hey, by the way, this book is completely full of spoilers, so don't read this book if you don't want the game spoiled. I was so excited to see that. Thank you. Someone actually realizes that people that have played the game are going to buy the book, and you don't have to write it for someone's grandma who's never played a video game. You don't have to play it as an advertising tool. This is an advertising tool. This is bonus features. This is like a bonus features on a DVD or Blu-ray. So give us everything and more. That's what we want. And this book totally understands that. I really, really appreciate it. I also think the game itself is quite underrated. I don't think it's like this flawless masterpiece. For some reason, some of the cutscenes and stuff at the start are a bit janky, and I think that threw a lot of people off. But as a whole product, I really liked it, actually. And this book is really great. Very interesting commentary from the game director and artists themselves, explaining why they're designing things the way that they did. Well, we kind of were doing this with the main character Deacon and decided that's going to come across this way. So we made these changes, and here's kind of how we reflected that in the art design. That's exactly what I would want to see in this kind of thing. I think this book is really well done. This is made by people who understand what it is they're making, why people are buying it. I would probably give this 5 out of 5 stars. I'm a pretty big fan of this. Right, the Art of Death Stranding. You've got this, I think it was advertised as Hyrule Gold, gilded pages. A lot of the art in here is by Yoji Shinkawa from Metal Gear fame. A lot from other people. I just kind of like Yoji's work a lot more than the other people, but it's not bad. There's not really that much that's exceptional about this book. I really like that it's wide. It goes a lot into, for example, like, here's how we designed like the buildings. And I'm like, the buildings? Was there building? Oh yeah, I guess there were those distribution centers you went to. That's not what I'm remembering about Death Stranding though. I'm remembering the environments, the walking around, the how bushes looked. Were there even bushes in the game? How it all looked environmentally. And there's like a huge focus on, well, here's how we made this building look. So I thought it was kind of weird. Maybe that was just where they had to devote a lot of their energies, because they used the game engine to produce a lot of the landscape. But anyway, maybe something like 3 out of 5 stars. Disappointingly, I'm a pretty big fan of Kojima and his work, and that book's not nearly up to scratch as like the Metal Gear Solid art books are, for example. All right, so I've got several more. These are much less art books than they are history books. I kind of want to present them all at the same time to give you a little bit of comparison. I'll probably do a much more in-depth video explaining why I like some more than others. This one is sort of a hybrid. It gives almost no history, actually. It just shows all the different consoles and accessories that have existed and what they look like taken apart. And some brief things descriptively, not a whole lot. If you have literally no clue about video game history, you'd find some interesting things in here. I was a little let down by it. I guess it does what it says it's going to do, which is show you like the consoles and the actual hardware. But I think after you've looked at, I don't know how motherboards are put together or like exactly what's going on with them. You know, you show me 30 of them, I'm not going to be wildly interested in seeing number 22 or whatever. With the exception of like really early systems like the Magnavox Odyssey or something, where it's like, man, this motherboard looks like it was put together by hand. That's really old looking. But it's okay. Maybe 2 or 3 out of 5, something like that. If you're interested in hardware, I mean, obviously that's the way to go. Okay, this book is called The Ultimate History of Video Games. It suffers from the same issue that... I've got my bookmark in there. It suffers from the same issue that an illustrated history of 151 video games has, which is it's got kind of this... it has a cover that doesn't do the book justice. You wouldn't think that this is the de facto history book for video games that I would imagine is literally read by students in game design and video game programs. I mean, this is a really good and thorough history book. It has a lot of primary sources, by which I mean he didn't just read an article on the internet and take some excerpt out of it. Like, he went and talked with the president of Nintendo of America, or he went and talked with Hideo Kojima or whoever, and has like firsthand remarks. And a huge amount of the book are those first-hand accounts from things. Here's what the president of Sega said about this development going on. And he'll be quoted in there like 100 times. I can't imagine that a video game history book could be done better than this. But I'm not a very creative person, so I'm sure someone could come up with some way. This was written in the early 2000s, maybe like 2003 or 4, something like that. So it's not going to have any information about PlayStation 3, 4, you know, doesn't have much about Xbox brand at all. You may be old enough to just remember that amount of history. But man, this is the video game history book to get if you have any interest at all in reading a book like that. Really, really impressed. Not quite done with it. That's why I got the bookmark in there. Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, Jason Schreier of Kotaku, who, I haven't read that website in a decade. It has a lot of things that I'm just not interested in reading, many of which those articles written by this man. But when he actually is able to branch out and do some investigative journalism or something like that, he's actually quite good at it. And I think the industry needs way more of that. So this book highlights something like 10 or 12 or 13 games and their development process, what happened with them, the things that went smoothly, the obstacles they faced. And I think he does a really good job. He shows, here's what went wrong with this game and why. And it'll be because management was atrocious and didn't believe in the product. Here's what went wrong with this game, and it was the game engine was a total mismatch, and it was just a nightmare from start to finish. Here's what went wrong with this game. The person in charge was over-promising stuff like crazy, and it was impossible to meet fan expectations. And so there's a very good variety. Like, the games he selected and why he selected them really help paint a pretty big picture of the types of things going on in the industry and how those types of things work. And I think raises a lot of really important issues. For example, how something like 60% of the people that worked on Uncharted 4 have since quit Naughty Dog because it was so intense to make that game. They were working overtime constantly. It's just extremely stressful environment. And I think, what a shame, man. If you treat your employees better, maybe you could keep them. And those are really good games, and that's a shame to lose over half of your developers just because we can't treat them right. So I think, I really think this is if you have any awareness or caring about social responsibility or human rights or things in that realm, this is a pretty interesting book. It has, after reading this book where it's like, okay, I interviewed, the head of Sega for, I don't know, days or something, and here's all the stuff that everyone has to say. Going from something like that to this, you're going to be like, anonymous source. Who was it? What are they talking about? What's going on here? So it would be nice if there was some of that going on. It's treated a little bit like an investigative journalism piece or article, but in book form. I don't know what Jason's supposed to do about that. If someone's not going to say who they are, then how's he going to change that? But that's the one thing I would have appreciated if it was different. But again, what's Jason supposed to do? This is a very quirky book, Attack of the Flickering Skeletons. It's a sequel to another book that's insanely expensive and I'm never going to be able to buy. But it's reviews of games you've never heard of. So it'll bring up some ridiculously obscure game and explain why it sucks so bad. And it's usually pretty funny and how it decides to do that. I'm trying to find... It's also interspersed with like various people. Maybe someone like Jim Sterling will write like, here's my experience buying a really crappy game and regretting it forever. But it's mostly highlighting games, and it doesn't just keep the same format the whole time. It's got these kind of quirky twists, and it's sometimes tries a teensy bit too hard, but generally I think it's actually a pretty funny book. If you can find that somewhere, and you have any interest, it's pretty fun. It's a nice change of pace. Okay, last but not least, PlayStation Anthology. I think there's also a sequel to this one. After reading this, I thought, probably not going to buy that. So it's got a few major parts. I think that this book does a pretty good job of explaining certain parts about PlayStation's history. Even more so than this one, which is very difficult to fault. It doesn't have anything inaccurate, but this one goes into a lot more detail into Sony. Particularly like why they got into the video game business and how they managed to do it so successfully. I mean, Nintendo and Sega were all there was, really. There was also Atari and companies like 3DO at the time, but it was really Sega and Nintendo. How are you going to break into this market? And I think this book does a really, really good job of showing how that happened here's what happened, here's what they did with it, here's what they were thinking. They were, okay, no one's going to trust us. We've got to make sure we deliver on our promises. If we say we're going to deliver 10 to 15 games by Christmas, we got to have 15. We can't be delivering 6. Really does a very good job, as far as I know, outlining the split between PlayStation and Nintendo. You might know that story that basically Nintendo screwed over PlayStation, and the PlayStation brand was born out of contempt and basically as revenge towards Nintendo. And I think this book does a really good job of explaining how all that went, and also not just painting Nintendo as the villain, but showing here's why that they were so unsure of what to do about this tentative arrangement they'd reached. Here's why PlayStation was so excited and was totally blindsided by Nintendo's decision to drop them publicly. It does a really great job of explaining all of that. So if you have any interest in that kind of thing, this book is... I haven't found that kind of information anywhere else, including on the internet. Man, one major problem, though, is it was not edited well enough. I mean, it's one of those things you don't notice until it's not there, but good editing makes a big difference. With a good history book like this one, it'll be explaining some series of events. Here's what happened with Atari and Nolan Bushnell. And then when it kind of is getting to a certain point, it'll give you more details to kind of complete the picture, but it's still staying chronologically in the same ballpark. And then when it brings up some other topic, you can kind of see how they overlap, and it feels pretty good and informative. That's not really what this one's doing. It just kind of... I feel like it repeats itself over and over and over, and it's almost like... I don't know if there was like 3 buddies, hey, let's divide up what we want to report on, and it just was not melded together very well. I felt like it was really repetitive, just like what I just said, and how I already said it before. It also has this very large section in the book, not about PlayStation games, and about why the games were so special and went over so well, but about collectibles. So, oh, hey, there was this controller that was released by this company, and it came with these stickers and, you know, this little instruction manual. The manual was 4 pages, which was kind of not really what people were expecting at the time. And who on earth cares about this? This is so bizarre. It's very strangely organized. It takes up a huge part of the book. I think it was kind of a personal hobby of one of the authors, but I'm just left with, what is this? I don't care about any of this. You're not even going to talk about the games? That's why we're all fans. So I thought that was quite bizarre. Wow, I don't know how long this video is going to end up to be. Much longer than I thought. Hopefully that gives you a very good spread of, ooh, I'm interested in buying a new video game art book. Which one should I buy? Well, that's what I think about all of those. Like I said, I'll hopefully have some more in-depth reviews of some of the, the last 20 or so that I showed, but you can find more in-depth reviews of the first 17 if you have any interest in that. As always, if you have any complaints about this video or anything else I've done, please feel free to contact my customer support center. We are there 24/7.